Hi, beautiful people. Welcome to VAR Fashion's YouTube channel. Today, we'll be learning how to make this beautiful dress you see on the mannequin. It's an over the bust Victorian corset. It also has an illusion net, that's a skin tone net, plunging right into the center front all the way to the underbust. So without wasting time, let's jump into the tutorial. This is my basic bodice pattern. This is for the front and for the back. I've gone ahead to draw it. So if you don't know how to draft your basic bodice pattern, I'm going to be dropping the link in the comment section, sorry, in the description box, so that you can check it out and know how I arrived at this point. I'm just going to be giving us a brief explanation. This is my shoulder line, the front armhole, the bust line, which is B, and then the under the bust line, and then the waistline. Okay, so from shoulder to bust point is 11 inches for this client. Is 11 inches. To under the bust is 15, and then the half length of this client, that's the front half length, is 18 inches. The back length is 16 inches, which is a difference of 2 inches from what the front is. Okay, so basically back is back. This is the chest line and this is the waistline. And then of course my armhole. Like I earlier said, we're going to be making an over the bust corset. So we'll be adapting this into our over the bust corset. So to get started, the bust measurement I'm working with is 42 inches. When divided by 4 is 10.5. Okay, I used a dart of 1.5 inches. You can use half inch if that's what you want. I want it really tightened, so that's why I'm using a dart of 1.5 inches. Okay, and the underbust, the waist measurement is 33 inches. When 33 inches is divided by 4, I have 8 1/4. So here is my 8 1/4 inch, and then I went ahead to replace back my 1.5, which is the dart that I took, because I went ahead to connect it to the bust line. Okay, so now to go ahead to tighten the underbust, because we want to make a corset, so you need to tighten the underbust. So to tighten the underbust now, I'm going to be checking what I have left. That's what will determine how tight it will be. The underbust measurement is 31 inches. So 31 divided by 4 is 7 3/4. So I have 7 3/4. So what I have left here is 2 and a bar. Let's say 2 inches. That's what I have here. This is 2 and a bar. Okay. So I'll be tightening the center and the side with this 2 inches and a bar. So I'll come here to this side. I'm going to place 3/4 of an inch on this side. So after placing 3/4 of an inch, so I'm going to be left with 1 1/4 and a bar. So that will be like 1 1/4. I'll place my remaining 1 1/4 on this side. So here is my 1 1/4 inch. Okay. So we want to bring in your ruler to connect it. So this is me tightening the underbust. So having done this, I'm going to connect it to the bust point. So I'm making an over the bust corset. So I need to get the upper bust point, because I have the under bust point. So I need to get the upper bust point now. I have a difference of the bust, but the distance from the bust to the under bust is 4 inches. So I'm going to be placing that same 4 inches or 4.5. You can add extra half inch, or you maintain the same distance that's what the distance is from the bust point to the under bust. You can maintain the same thing at this point. Okay, so here is the upper bust line now. Okay, So I'm going to be taking my dart all the way up. That's my dart line. And then I'll come here now. I want to tighten the upper bust. Okay, I'll come here at this point. I'll be taking half of an inch and then half inch on this side. So automatically that means I'm taking 1 inch on that side. So you want to just use your curved ruler to connect it. You don't want it to be too sharp. So that's why I'm using this part of my curve. Okay, so this is what we have. So I've tightened the upper bust too. Okay, so I'm going to be drawing this over the bust corset is going to have an insert. It's like a plunge. I'm going to be using a net to replace this particular place. Okay, so now this is what I'm going to do. I'll come here to this point and then I'll go ahead to mark 1 1/4 inch. So whatever it is you are marking, have it at the back of your mind that this is unfold. This is my center front, so it's unfold. When it is open, that means I'm going to have 2 inches. So I'll come here and mark. I'm going to have 2.5. That's what that means if I'm using 1 1/4 inch. So okay, so I'm going to mark my 1 1/4 inch here on this point. So that is it. So this 1 1/4 inch here, look at, I came down from this point by, that's from this over the bust line by 3/4 of an inch. So let me just mark this 3/4 of an inch so that we see what I came down by. This is where the net is going to start from. That's the plunge net that will go into the neckline. So I'm going to connect it now to the underbust point. This is the underbust point now. I'm bringing it down to this point. So this part is going to be my net. So I'm not going to use my ruler to make it sharp. So I'm just going to use this curved part because I want it to be a little curvy. Can you see what we have here? So this is what we have here. Okay, so now I want to create my sweetheart neckline. It will be starting from this point like this. Just take note of the way I'm placing my curve. So it will come here and meet this part here. Now, can you see it came here to meet this 1 1/4 inch? As I place my curve to curve in to give the sweetheart shape. So can you see how deep it's going? But remember, I came down by 1 3/4 inch because this is where the net is supposed to stop. The net will not go all the way to the overbust line. Okay, so now I'll bring it this way to blend into this point. So I'll place my curve like this. Place my curve like this to bring me to the armhole. Can you see what we have? So basically, this is how it's going to be going, and then it will go into the armpit. That's into the underarm of the underarm of the person, into the armpit of the person, because it's a tube we're making. That's an over the bust corset. So can you see how I took it this way? So I'm going to extend my dart now. Just pay attention and watch what I'm doing very well. You get it right. Okay, so here we are. So you can see how it goes and then it goes into the armhole. Okay, so here is the net. I'm going to be using net at this point. Okay, so I haven't tightened I haven't tightened the underbust and the overbust. Now it's time for me to close the bust that I'm going to be cutting this. Okay, so these are the points I'll be cutting, these parts, the places with the darts. Okay, so I'll bring in my paper scissors and go ahead and cut it out. Now, so I'll come here to the side, just going to cut from this part now. I'll show us what to do before we cut on the actual line that is needed. So here is my waist and bust dart. So I want to close the bust dart. Okay, so I'm going to place this paper like this. Can you see? that by raising it like this, so can you see that now my measurement has shifted? This is where it is. So by closing the bust dart, can you see that it has shifted? So I have to blend up this line. So I'll bring in my masking tape and tape it down and go ahead and blend it up. So after placing my masking tape, I'm going ahead to blend up this line to meet the armhole line here. Okay, so this is what we now have. Okay, so if you want to add your sewing allowance now to your pattern, you can go ahead and add your sewing allowance of 2 inches. Can you see that I still have space on my pattern paper? So I'm just going to go ahead and add my side sewing allowance. So here is my sewing allowance of 2 inches. So I'll go ahead to connect my lines. So I have my sewing allowance added. So just go ahead to cut it out like this. Okay, so this is this side, and then this is the center front. So now the center front, let me just go ahead and cut it out this way and show us how to cut the center front properly. So now the center front, this is what I need for my net. This is what I need for the neckline. That's for the center piece, which is this part. So can you see where it's stopping? It's stopping at the underbust. So I want the net to start at this point. So this is it. I'm cutting out this point now. So this is what I have. Net will be replacing this part. Can you see how it's going to be straight? And then the centerpiece just goes up to form the sweetheart shape. Can you see what we have? So, and then I'll go ahead to cut out this part, because this is just an extra paper. So this is my centerpiece, this is my centerpiece, and this is my side piece. And you see what we have? So these parts are matching up. So if you don't want this too much of this sharpness here, if it is too sharp, so you just come here and take out like this, so that it just blends up nicely. This is because of the dots, how much dot we took from there. So I have my net. This will be replaced by net, and then this will be replaced by the main fabric. Then this is this. So for this place, to avoid too much sharpness, because what I have here is okay, but just in case when you close your dart and you notice that it's too sharp, just trim out like 1/4 inch and you will be fine. Okay, so now we're going to be doing the back. The back is also going to be tube, of course. That's going to be an over and going to be tube. That's it's going to be off the shoulder without the shoulder measurement. Okay, so I'm coming here. Remember that the armhole for this point, we came in by 1.5. Can you see that's the curve? We came in by 1.5. So the same thing, I'm going to be going up at the back too by the same 1.5. So here is what we'll be doing for the back. So this is the upper chest line that we'll be using at the back. So now for this back, we're going to have eyelets on this back. So now let me just go ahead and cut out this part, which is the bulge I removed from the back. Okay, so when after cutting it out, we're going to show us how to create position for our eyelets. Okay, so this is just what I need for my back. You see, this is how the back is going to be. It's quite small, yes. So now for the eyelets, because we'll be having eyelets at the back, at this point, which is the waistline, I'll be taking away 2 inches. and then at the upper part I'll be taking away 2.5. So I'm going to connect this now. So you want to keep this because the I'll be attaching this over the bust corset to a skirt pattern. It's going to have a straight skirt down. So you want to keep this to make sure that where this is 2 inches here and this is 2.5, so that where this on this upper part is starting from on the skirt, will it will leave 2 inches before it starts. Okay, so right now we're not talking about zip allowance on this pattern because we're using eyelets, so there will be no zip allowance. So you need to mark the point where it will start from. So this is where it will start from on the skirt. There's 2 inches away from the zip allowance on the skirt, so that is it. So I'm going to be cutting out this part, and then I'll keep it safe because I'll be using it later when I'm sewing the skirt. So here for this part, remember we came up by 1 inch, so I just want to curve it to give it that armhole, that smooth curve that goes into the armpit. So can you see, because this is our front now, you see after closing our that, so this has to come here now to blend up with this, that so that it blends up with the front armhole. Okay, so can you see what we have? So I'll be cutting this way. Okay, so this is it. So and then let's confirm this is 1.5, 1.5. So if I that since I'm using a sewing allowance of 2 inches, just add a piece of paper here that will give me the remaining, that will give me up to my 2 inches for sewing allowance. So I'll just place this paper here. So basically, this is the allowance for the back because this is where the actual measurement stops. So this is allowance for the back. So I'll just tape it down and add ½ inch to it so that I know I have my sewing allowances on my pattern. So as you can see, I've joined the paper. So now I have my actual sewing allowance. So I've added my sewing allowance to the pattern. So basically, this is just what we need to achieve the over the bust corset. Can you see? So this will start from the under bust and then stop here. It doesn't go all the way to the neckline. And can you see how this just blends up? So I'll make sure to keep this piece because I'll be needing it when I am cutting my skirt pattern. It's going to just be a straight skirt. So now to cut out our main fabric, I'll be cutting out 2 pieces of this because this neckline is going to be deep. This is what I'm doing. I'm going to be cutting these 2 pieces. I'm going to be cutting 2 pieces, so I'll add sewing allowance of ½ inch on this part, that's on this side here. I'll come out by ½ inch just from the under bust here. So I'll cut it and show us how to do it. Cut out this with sewing allowance, and then this I'm cutting out exactly the same thing. I've added my sewing allowance. The only place I need to add sewing allowance is on the upper part and on this down part. The same thing will be done here, ½ inch here and ½ inch here. Okay, and then ½ inch too on this side. This the back, I'll be adding ½ inch up here, ½ inch here, and then also ½ inch on this side and ½ inch on this side. Okay, so I'm done cutting out my main fabric. Now I have my center pieces. Now take a look. Remember I said I'll be cutting with ½ inch for my sewing allowance. So can you see how this part is protruding out? This is the actual pattern. Can you see what we have? So we have extra ½ inch that we're going to be using to join it together. And so I also went ahead to cut out the net, the part that will be replacing the this part, this tiny plunge that I had to cut out here. I cut it with ½ inch sewing allowance, round, both up and down. So can you see I have my ½ inch here and another ½ inch. I didn't cut it with the sharp shape that it has. I cut it with ½ inch, so it's like a blocked shape. So you want to make sure that you do that. Don't make this part thin, because that's what will affect it, so that it doesn't balance well. So if you cut it correctly with the block shape, that's like the flat base, you're not going to have that problem. So I have three of these. You can do two. In my case, why I have three is because I want to use double of the net as the main fabric, and then one will be the lining. This is just to thicken it so that it's not transparent and revealing the client's body. Okay, so that's that for my net. And then also my side pieces, can you see I've cut them out with my sewing allowance. I have half-inch round. Okay, that's what I have here. Then for the back, this is what I have. So because I'll be having eyelet at the back, I wouldn't want my dart to be too close to the eyelet. Okay, so this is me now. I've closed my dart on the pattern. This is on a normal day when you sew your dart, this is what you should have. So it will, by the time you sew your dart, it will give you this slanted shape. That's to show that you have sewn your dart. So now in my case, I'm closing my dart. I'm closing my dart, so which is as good as sewing it also. So by closing my dart, I'm going to make my upper bodies, that's the back upper body, dartless. So you cannot say that this cloth does not have a dart. The dart has been taken, it has been closed. It will give it the actual shape you want, and then it will remain dartless. So by closing it, can you see what I have? So you see the shape I have now. My dart has been closed. Okay, so that's that for the dart. So having closed this is what I have now. So I'm going to bring the lower parts. Like I said earlier, that we're going to be using a straight skirt for the down part, and this is what I have, is a short straight skirt. So in case you don't know how to cut a straight skirt, or a pencil skirt as some would call it, you can just, I'm going to drop the link in the comment section so that you can watch it. Okay, so can you see now that I've placed this? Can you see what I have here after taking my dart? My skirt is going to have a dart. It's not going to be dartless as the upper part. The upper part I've closed my dart, but the skirt will have a dart. Okay, so this is what I'm doing. Can you see me placing my skirt, than the upper part and the lower part on top of the skirt? The upper part on top of the lower part, sorry, I beg your pardon. So can you see this part I talked about, these 2 inches? Can you see? So this is where my part, the upper bodies will start from, that will be joined to this part. Can you see? So this part will be left open because I'll be using loops on this side. So this is to tell you that this is where you have to start. This is where your upper bodies is supposed to start from on the skirt pattern, and leaving this part out. And then this part I notched is my zip allowance. So can you see what we have? So I'm going to be leaving this part. So remember that this is just one side of our skirt. So this same 2 inches we have here, we're still going to have the same thing on this side. Okay, so for all my patterns, I cut their linings. This is a lace fabric I'm working with. So I've top stitched the lace to the main lace. That's, I've top stitched the satin to the main lace, and then I also have the second linings that we're using to neatly finish them from inside. So I also did the same things for this one. So right now it's time for us to sew the insert. I'm going to show us how to sew it, and then we'll go ahead to start fixing our boning to the front pieces. This is my middle piece. I'll be having my insert. Okay, you can see it's plunging into it, and then this is also my lining. I joined it on the extra half-inch I added, which is the seam allowance, and I came down by half of an inch. As I sewed from below, I stopped half-inch away from the tip. So the same thing was done here too. I did the same thing here. I stopped half-inch before that's the half-inch I added. Okay, so now this is how I'm going to be sewing the net. You will need your pins. So I'm going to be inserting this net half-inch below the the underbust, because this mark is on the underbust. So I'm going to be placing it half-inch below the underbust now. So I'm going to stop here. So you want to just pin it nicely so that it stops here. Remember that I didn't go all the way to the curved part of the neckline. That is not on the same level with the neckline. So I'm going to be sewing now. So you want to just do this carefully. Now for this one, I'll be starting from the upper part because I want my stitch to come and meet the prick, that's the stitch I used to join them together, this half inch stitch. I want my stitch to come back here and stop here. So I'm going to do that now this way. I fixed the button half inch away from this point. That's it's not going into the seam allowance. Can you see what we have? So now I'm going to do this other side the same way I've done this. So now this other side I have to be sewing from below because this is how I'm going to see the stitch from here also. So I want to make sure that it stops at the same point where this stopped here also. So I'm going to place them together and then make sure that the net stops actually at this exact point. So I'll pin this part also and then I'll start sewing from down now. I want to start my stitch from this point. So here we are. Can you see what we have? Can you see? So this is what I have under here. So this is me fixing my lining for the center pieces. That's the center pieces, but I stopped 1 inch away from the side seam. That's take note of what I'm doing. I stopped 1 inch away from the side seam because I'll be joining my side pieces to this bustier. So I had to stop 1 inch away from the side seam. So I'll do the same thing for the second side and show us. So it's sitting really nicely and it is deep inside. This is just a very easy way of sewing a plunged neckline. Okay, so I'm going to be joining my side pieces now. What we have, so we'll just take it to our pressing table and press it. Okay, so after ironing my seam lines open, so I just decided to cut out another style line just 1 inch after the side pad. That's after the pad I placed on the side piece. This is just to create more structure. The more bonings you have, the more structure you have. So basically, there's nothing special I did there. I just cut and then I replaced it back and added seam allowances that will help me join it back. This is just to have a boning line there. If you don't want to do that, just stick with the earlier plan or the earlier cut that I did. Okay, I just want to have more boning lines, which will actually give more structure to the dress. Okay, so this is me now placing my boning on the side, on the center seam line. That's on the center piece, the side seam line of the center piece. Okay, I came down by half inch from the neckline, and then I'll also have to go up by half inch from the hemline on the waist. This is to avoid, you don't want the boning to go into your seam line. I hope this makes sense. So this is me sewing it very close to the tip of the boning. That's where your sewing allowance is on the boning. So whatever size of boning you have, so long as it's the sew on boning, which is the regulating boning, you will notice that there's a side that is kind of plain that you will sew on, which is for your seam allowance. So you just want to make sure that you arrange it well. You have to just arrange this part well. Remember that our bustier is already padded, so you have to be very careful. You don't want to have gathering anywhere. Just follow me carefully, you will get it right. And if you have watched this video up to this point, kindly subscribe to my channel, like this video, share it please, so that my channel can grow, and the more people that like this video, the more people will watch this video. Thank you, and let's continue with our job. Okay, so I haven't sewn the boning on the center piece side seam. Okay, so I'm going to be sewing on the second side also. So you just want to be very careful. You don't want to have any gathering at this stage. Remember that the stitch will be showing in front. So you want to just make sure that you do it well, gently, straight and neat. And so long as you take your time, you will achieve it. Can you see already that the bustier is beginning to give that structured effect? Okay. So this is what we have after sewing the side. Can you see how beautiful this side turned out to be? So compare it to the other side that the boning has not been sewn. You will notice the difference. So I'm going to repeat the same thing I've done on the center piece. Okay, the seam line of the center piece. I'll do the same thing on the side piece, and then I'll go ahead to sew the bonings too on extra the extra style line that I added. Okay, so that's what we'll be doing. Okay, so after fixing my bonings, can you see what we have? And I've also neatly turned the neckline, that's the upper part, with my lining fabric. So it's time for us to fix our skirt to the upper bodice. Okay, so you want to make sure that you do this neatly. You place it lace facing lace so that you can now use your lining to turn the waistline in order to have the neat finishing. Okay, once we're done with this, the next thing to do is to treat our back pieces. So for my back piece, you can see I'm coming in by 1 inch. I cut a piece of fabric, which is the satin fabric, and I used haste to fuse it. That's the part where I'm going to be fixing my eyelets. So this is just to strengthen the part where the eyelets are going to be. Remember that will be tying this eyelet, so you need to make it as strong as possible around that part. So that's why I went ahead to cut my satin fabric and I added haystay to it. I also went in by 1 inch before placing it, so automatically it means that that part of the fabric is thicker than the other part. Okay, so I went ahead to sew a boning to the seam line inside. So that is the stitch you can see right now. That's the stitch you can see, the first stitch. So I'm fixing the second boning because I'm going to have two bonings at that point. So at the center is where I will fix my eyelets. This is just for the this is just to strengthen that part so that it can withstand any kind of pressure when you are tying the back. When you are tying the back, remember it's a corset we are making, so of course the waist is snatched, so it will have to experience pressure when trying to tie the back. I hope I'm making sense and we are understanding it. So just this is me just sewing my second boning line. Okay, so after doing that, I'll go ahead and trim out any excess I have there. So can you see what I have? So I'll go ahead and trim out the excess I have there before I'll use my lining to turn my fabric. So see what we have. So this center part is where the bonings, the eyelets will be sitting in between the two boning lines. Okay, so I've used my lining to turn the rough part, that's to turn the center back, because that point is our center back. So I haven't done that. I'll do the same thing for the second one, that's for the second back, and then show us how to fix it to the skirt pattern. So for the skirt pattern, I've sewn my darts on the skirt pattern. So as you can see, I pinned the upper bodice to the lower part, which is the skirt pattern. I made sure to align my darts. Remember that the upper bodice is dartless, so, but I made sure that the part where the dart was supposed to be is where is aligned with the skirt, which is where has the satin fabric. Can you see? So my lines are aligning. So please, you want to make sure that you do that. You don't want to sew and then your darts are just one side, one is on the left and one is on the right. Just make sure that they are aligning just to make your work very neat and accurate. Okay, so and I still have my 2 inches space that I left. This is to help me tie the back of the corset to give it the snatched waistline. Okay, so that is it. So I'll go ahead and sew the upper bodice to the lower part, and then I'll show us how to turn the lining. We are almost done with this tutorial, so I hope you have subscribed. If you haven't, kindly do so. Thank you. So now, after sewing the waistline, I want to turn my lining. I'll be using the lining to turn all the rough parts you can see, to turn it completely round. Okay, so I'll be placing it the good side of the lining. Right now the lining has the right side because it is it has been sewn to the dress already. That's to the down part of the dress. So now we already have our good side. So can you see how I'm placing it? So the lining is going to be on top of the upper bodice, so that by the time I turn it, it will come to the other side. Just take note of what I'm doing, you will understand it. So this is me pinning it. So I'll go ahead and sew it. So once I'm done turning my lining, it's time to shape our outfit. So I'm just going to sew the back to the front, that's couple it and shape it of the sewing allowance I added. So boom, our dress is ready. So this is what it looks like on my beautiful client. Can you see how the dress fits perfectly? Okay, so you can see I have a structure on the shoulder line. If you want to see how I made this structure on the shoulder line, kindly subscribe, because that will be the next video I'll be uploading on this channel. You can see I also went ahead to fix pearls to the neckline, that's all the way down to the plunge, and it beautified the structure and the dress itself. So this is what my client looks like at her event. Can you see how beautiful it turned out? Don't forget to subscribe, like this video, share it. Thanks for watching. Bye.